here I am. Welcome to Talking Ball with Scotty and Sergio. I'm recording this from the Hunter Valley in New South Wales, Australia. Sergio, how's LA treating you?
Hey, how's it going? LA is good. Still locked down, but excited to see some ball.
You had an interesting morning at the airport today, hey?
Yeah, it's impossible to get through LAX at the moment. There's just no one there. No one knows what's going on. It was a weird day, but we're here and we're ready.
We're a day away. We've got a couple of pods to catch up on before the season starts, but the season technically starts in less than 24 hours. We have Golden State versus Brooklyn Nets, not New Jersey Nets. But let's get into it today, guy. It's our second last team analysis pod. We're going to go through the New York Knicks, New Orleans Pelicans, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Orlando Magic, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Phoenix Suns. But before we do, a little bit of buzz around the NBA with a few young guys getting some contract extensions. Run through these ones quickly. Serge, we had Luke Kennard. Obviously, the Clippers have seen enough of him in training to think he's worth it. They're giving him 4 years, $64 million extension.
Luke Kennard, 3 years in the league, over 40% averaging as a three-point shooter. So this kind of just says how important it is right now in the league to be a good shooter.
Yep, 100%.
Montrez kind of had a laugh on Instagram or on Twitter about it, but who knows what happened behind closed doors with them.
Yeah. Oh, he can't say too much. He took less money to go to the championship team, so he's there to win a title, not to get paid. He's still got plenty of years. Markelle Fultz, big turnaround from a couple of years ago where he didn't have a shot. He was really struggling for confidence as the number one overall pick drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers. He's at the Magic now. He got a 3-year, $50 million extension. That's glad to see that he's turned around and he started proving himself, and he's a good player.
100%, mate. Really happy to see this. It was a guy who went through, it wasn't really detailed as much, but it seemed to be mental health problems. So great to see that he's turned it around. He's an asset to the Magic and he's back full force.
Yeah, continuing with the Magic, they have extended Jonathan Isaac from his rookie contract, 4 years, $80 million. A little bit surprised. I think he did his ACL in the bubble. Before that, though, he looked amazing. His offensive game was getting better, but defensively, he's a monster.
Yeah, massive wingspan, 6'11", athletic, very much needed on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Similar player for the Raptors, 4 years, $72 million extension for OG Anunoby. Really had a breakout season last year. Looking really good. His three-point shot looks wet, and he looks like a great defensive piece with that Toronto Raptors team.
100%. Enough, you can see the trend between all these players. They're all 22, 23, 24. Mm-hmm. A lot of time ahead of them, a lot of growth expected. Sky's the limit with most of them.
Yeah. Derek White is the last one we're going to have a quick chat about. He's been extended as well. I haven't got the exact figures, but it's looking like it's going to be 3 or 4 years for $73 million extension, probably 4 years. They got plenty of guards on that team, but he obviously got to play a little bit with Team USA last year as well. Locking up a good young piece there, the Spurs and Derek White.
Yeah, the Spurs are number one at sniffing out talent. So,
and they're not
it's got to be in a good direction for them.
They're one of those teams, they don't attract a lot of great free agents as well, the Spurs, so they have to get this growth from within, and hopefully these guys can turn into maybe just under all-stars, but really productive players for this team in the future as they're essentially starting their rebuild, which is something you don't hear too often with San Antonio.
Yeah. It's going to be some weird years, but, if Popovich is still there, it should be quick.
Yeah, got to wonder how much longer he's got left as well. But we'll get into the San Antonio Spurs in our next pod. And just to round up all those news, word coming from the league that with obviously what happened with Bogdanovic and the weirdness around that trade that fell through, the NBA has penalized the Bucks. They're going to lose their 2022 second-round pick. Had a feeling something was going to happen here. There was tampering somewhere in about here. Everyone was talking, and probably lucky not to lose a first-round pick, to be honest, but second-round pick will do.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that they're cracking down. The NBA has to maintain clarity and everything has to be, clean. They don't want any bad rep for the league, and it's important. I think they got away pretty easy with the second round, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, they did. and it shouldn't affect them too much going into the future. I think a team that's generally trying to win a championship's not too worried about who they're going to get as the number 45 pick or something like that. So they'll move on. And let's move on as well, Serge. Let's get straight into the team analysis. Let's start with the New York Knickerbockers. Last year, they were 21-45 for 12th in the East. The GM, Scott Perry, their new coach, Tom Thibodeau. Their guards are Austin Rivers, Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., Emmanuel Quickly, their rookie, Reggie Bullock, Elfrid Payton, Alex Burks, Theo Pinton's on a two-way contract, Miles Powell, RJ Barrett. Their forwards are Ignatius Brazdeikis, probably didn't say that right, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Julius Randle, Omari Spellman, Kevin Knox, Obi Toppin, their, I believe it was number 8 pick, Scully Bissier, and their centers are Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson. Could be a long year again for the Knicks, I'm pretty sure, Serge.
Pretty sure. But they're starting off with a new coach, Tibbs, which, being a Chicago guy, I always loved him. Mm-hmm. He works his team hard. He expects the best from them, but he's a great coach. He had some success with the Celtics as an assistant coach before that. And he's a hard-nosed coach. Doesn't take a lot of excuses.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see him. There's a lot of rookies and second-year guys on this team. So how hard can Thibs push them? We know that sometimes it comes back to bite him in the ass a little bit. He pushes guys a little bit too hard in training, and guys can burn themselves out. But it should be an interesting year for the Knickerbockers. Got some good players, good young players all over the shop. Obi Toppin will be great to watch this year. For me, really, this team, it's about what's going to happen with a couple of these second, third, fourth-year guys now. Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., have they got anything left? Can they really produce and get themselves into the rotation or become trade pieces that'll be good for New York? Because they were in the same draft. Dennis Smith Jr. obviously came to New York in that crazy Kristaps Porzingis trade that makes no sense if you look at it now. And him and Ntilikina have both struggled to get minutes, and a lot of young guys coming through now. Are they going to lose their spots? Is there anything left for these guys?
The big one is Smith Jr. I mean, he was such a special player the first year was in the league, I think, straight away.
Yeah, they gave him the reins as the point guard there in Dallas that first season, and Dallas weren't supposed to do well. He learned, but as soon as Luka got there, it just wasn't a good fit. And they shipped him off, and he really hasn't done much for the Knicks. He's been sitting right at the end of the bench, struggling a little bit. And with Emmanuel Quickly coming through, Austin Rivers coming into rotation, RJ Barrett's going to be starting no matter what. It'll be interesting to see if those guys get any minutes.
Yeah, Barrett's the guy that you want to look at this season. I mean, he's a star player. It's going to take a bit of time for him to find his way in the NBA.
They let him have the ball all year last year, and he wasn't. I think he was like crazy inefficient. But again, when you're on a terrible team to look like it was going nowhere last year, you don't have guys who create good opportunities for you either off the pick and roll. So let's hope that he can take another step this year. If he can be in that most improved category by the end of the season, the Knicks are maybe looking at coming at 12th or 11th again. Just depends what you want to do. Do they want to finish last in the East and hopefully get one of these crazy kids that are coming through in the next couple of draft? Or is it, let's see how far we can go with these guys and then see what happens to free agency?
I think this team's built to not make the playoffs, to just start, breeding some new talent under Tibbs. But I don't think their expectation is to get into the top 8.
No, they got some great pieces. Mitchell Robinson is turning into an absolute monster as a double-double player and a really good rim protector. The question for me is what happens with Julius Randle, especially because I think that he might be on the trading block because you got to start to think that Obi Toppin will start to get some more minutes and Kevin Knox as well. Whether Obi Toppin's going to take the majority of his minutes, how that forward position looks this year.
I think it's really going to depend on how they all gel and who fits in best with what player on the team.
I think that Randall might get traded, but he's in the second year of his contract. So it is an expiring contract, just under 19 mil. So is there a team that wants to take a flyer on him? That's the question.
Could be an option.
And just before we finish with the Knicks, they're also this year still paying just under $6.5 million for Joakim Noah.
Wow.
Still getting paid.
Wow. Is Noah still? He's still getting paid by the Grizzlies, correct?
Yeah, he is.
Wow.
Serge, let's move on. Let's skip a couple pages on what I sent you because my alphabet clearly wasn't right. We're going to go over to the New Orleans Pelicans, which I missed. This should be a really interesting team for the really interesting year for the New Orleans Pelicans. They finished 13th in the West last year, 30-42. Probably didn't go as well in the bubble as people were expecting them to. They got a new coach this year as well, and Stan Van Gundy. GM is still David Griffin. Their guards are Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, JJ Redick, Josh Hart, Tony Carr. They got the 13th pick in Kira Lewis Jr., Rawley Akins. Their forwards are Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Wenyen Gabriel, Nicolo Melli, Najee Marshall's on a two-way contract, Jared Utoff, and a bunch of centers. They got Steven Adams, Willie Magny's on a two-way contract, Ike Anigbogu, Willie Hernan Gomez, and Jackson Hayes. This could be a crazy year. Some people have been predicting New Orleans could get high enough as 7th. A little bit crazy for me. There are a few more teams that are established in the West, but this team is going to be fun to watch all year.
This is one of my teams to watch. I'm going to be watching a lot of their games because it's going to be exciting to see Lonzo and Zion and how Ingram does after getting selected the most improved player, was it?
He was the most improved, and he was an all-star last year as well.
Yeah, so this team has a lot of potential, a lot of young stars, a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting to see how Stan Van Gundy goes with them as well.
Yeah, they are absolutely stacked at the guard position with Lonzo, Eric Bledsoe, Alexander Walker was their rookie last year, JJ Redick, Josh Hart's a good player, their rookie Kira Lewis Jr. So I think there's a trade somewhere there, maybe for a JJ Redick to bring in a couple of young pieces, but it'll be interesting to see how Eric Bledsoe bounces back. A lot of people have been throwing a lot of shade at him for his performance the last couple of years for Milwaukee in the playoffs. Yeah. Lonzo Ball, if he can get that shooting percentage a little bit higher, we know how good a rebounder and passer and defender he is. Yeah, there's a few questions. Can Brandon Ingram, can he be a 25-point scorer again, 25, 5 and 5? That all-star player he was he last year, and Zion. Zion's the big one here. What is Zion going to do? Because if Zion goes bonkers this year, I think they're in the playoff picture 100% New Orleans.
And that's the most exciting thing because he has no minutes restriction. So he's just going to go full throttle. And we're going to get to see what a fully fit, fully healthy player is. And if he's really that star that he's been promoted to be.
It'll be interesting to see how they finish games because they've got obviously Steven Adams, who they just signed and extended as well for another 2 years. Whether he'll be playing in that unit that finishes games, I'm not 100% sure. The way the NBA is these days, you need floor spacing at every position. And I think if Zion can be fit this year, the future of Zion is that small ball center.
For sure.
Like an absolute 100%. Monster. So, Serge, I've got their starting lineup this year as Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williams, and Steven Adams. You got the same?
Bledsoe could be a question mark. We'd have to see how he fits in, but I think they're going to go with that to start as well. Yes.
Yeah. Josh Hart could be the other one who I think slides into Bledsoe's position. Yeah. He's amazing defensively and is a really good offensive rebounder. They've got a lot of guys on this team who have really different skill sets. And this team, surely they're going to make at least a play-in, which is 9 and 10 this year. So, fingers crossed, they're going to be on national television a lot more than they were last year. And I'll be definitely watching them on League Pass this year.
For sure.
All righty, let's move into a team that they finished 5th in the West last year, the Oklahoma City Thunder at 44-28. I think they're hoping and their fans are hoping that this year they'll be 15th in the West. GM is Sam Presti. Their new coach is Mark Daigneault. These are their guards: Luguentz Dort, Theo Maladone, George Hill, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, Ty Jerome. Their forwards are Admiral Schofield, TJ Leaf, Josh Hall, Trevor Ariza, Justin Jackson, Heinrich Williams, Alexei Pokuševski, as everyone's calling him Poku, Mike Muscala, Darius Miller, Darius Baisley, Isaiah Roby, and their centers are Omer Yurtseven, Moses Brown, and Al Horford just seems so out of place. Um, this team, they've got 1,000 picks coming the next year. They just want to lose, Serge. That's all they want to do. That's all they need to do this year.
I mean, this team was massacred. Their starting lineup's gone. They lost their top 6 players on the team left.
Yep.
Or were traded. So they're a massive question mark. But Sam Presti is a mastermind at making his team better. It might take a couple of years, but he is a very smart GM. It's been seen and proven over time. You want to see really how Shea Gilgeous-Alexander,
the leader,
how he evolves. He's going to be a big part of their push forward in the next couple of years. And I don't know if Al Horford can be the guy he was at the Celtics.
You have to pay someone on that team essentially, because I'm pretty sure that Trevor Ariza and George Hill, I'm assuming, are going to be on the move at some point this season. I can't see them sticking around. You don't need that many vets on a team like this. Al Horford, I can't imagine anyone taking his contract. But a few questions about the team. Lou against Dort. Dort looked amazing last year guarding Harden in the playoffs. If his jump shot can get a little bit more consistent and he can get a bit better offensively, they got themselves a steal. He's only earning $1.5 million. If he can grow into 3-and-D style of play that everyone loves these days, he'll be there in the future when they're starting to become a good team.
Yeah, amazing stopper in the playoffs. It was incredible because everyone was so surprised to see him come out of nowhere and actually semi-contain Harden.
It's one of those teams, there's not a lot to talk about this year with OKC. They've got so many young guys coming through. This year is give everyone a crack, see how they all go, and then figure out who you're getting rid of next season when you have another 5 draft picks coming through. And the next couple of years, that's their goal. Their goal is just to see which pieces work, give Shea 25, 30 shots a night, see if he can become this awesome scorer and be consistent defensively. And there's nothing, just tank. Well, don't tank. Don't say you're tanking, but tank. And see if you can get some amazing plays in the next couple of years. Alexei Pokusevski, give him lots of minutes, see if his body can take the grind. And we'll see. Okay, so it might be a fun team to watch. They'll probably play pretty fast this year, but not a lot of wins, I don't think, Serge.
Probably not. Towards the bottom of the West for sure.
Yeah. Let's move on. Continue with the teams with the O's. The Orlando Magic. Last year, they finished 33-40 in the East. They lost in the first round of the playoffs. Their coach is Steve Clifford again. GM is John Hammond. Their guards, Evan Fournier, Michael Carter-Williams, Devin Kennedy, Dwayne Bacon, Markelle Fultz, who just got a nice 3-year, $50 million extension. Kareem Mane's on a 2-way. Jordan Bones on a 2-way. Cole Anthony, their rookie. Melvin Frazier. Their forwards are Gary Clark, Al-Farouq Aminu, Jonathan Isaac, who's going to start the season injured and just got a 4-year, $80 million extension. Terrence Ross, James Ennis, Chumu Okoke, Aaron Gordon, Robert Franks, and their centers are John Tesk, Nikola Vucevic, Kem Birch, Mo Bamba. Serge, can this team do better than 8? It feels like they're stuck in that 7th or 8th spot the last few years. Can they improve, or are there teams catching up to them?
I think they sit pretty much at the same position as last year, in my opinion, because a lot of teams in the East improved a lot. So it's going to be hard for them to move any higher. They do have possibilities to get into the playoffs. I'm excited to see Mo Bamba evolve this year. He has a lot of potential, and I don't know, Aaron Gordon also could be traded in the future.
Yeah.
He could be. I don't see him fitting in long term unless they all gel this season a bit more than last year.
Yeah, this team has there's a few questions about this team for me. There's probably a few trades. I'm looking at Aaron Gordon, like you're saying. There's a few teams. I think Aaron Gordon is a little bit overrated. His skill set probably isn't as good or doesn't match his athleticism at this point. Like, he's a solid defender without being a great defender. He's an okay 3-point shooter. He can't really create his own shot. So he needs to be the 4th option on a team for me. So who's going to take him on at $18 million? Maybe someone like the Minnesota Timberwolves. They seem to have this obsession with him. Can Vucevic be an all-star again? He seems to just have such a simple skill set, but he's so good at it, Nikola Vucevic. Mo Bamba was on one of my questions. Mo Bamba Dallas nearly, drafted him a couple of years ago, and he hasn't really done much. He's been averaging 15 points a minute. His defense hasn't looked great. His three-point shot hasn't been as good as it looked for what people were saying coming out of college. So I don't know. This team, I think, has a few decisions to make. Al-Farouq Aminu as well. If you've just signed Jonathan Isaac again, maybe trade him away for some young pieces. But yeah,
There's a
this
lot of
team.
players on the team that are a bit stagnant. They haven't gotten over that hump or their expectations. Like also Terrence Ross.
Yeah. He's a good player. He's a good sixth man coming off the bench. He can start a few games as well. Evan Fournier is really consistent. He's been a pretty good, consistent shooter for the last few years. Yeah, this team, they're going to be struggling to hold on to a playoff spot this year with obviously the rise of the Hawks and a few other teams. Their projected starting lineup, I've got them as Markel Fultz starting at shooting point guard, Evan Fournier starting at shooting guard. Al-Farouq Aminu is going to be small forward, Aaron Gordon, then Nick Vucevic. Could be Terrence Ross, depending if they need a bit more defense against teams. But yeah, they're in a weird position, the Orlando Magic, the same position they've been in for the last few years. And is it an issue with the coach? Have they pushed their players as far as they can go, or is Steve Clifford taken them offensively as far as they can go? Because he's a good defensive coach, but I think they're like right in the middle.
I think this should be a team that should be very interested in the trade deadline and see what they can get back for a few of the players that like Vucevic and Gordon that do have a little bit of interest outside of the NBA and get some like fresher pieces that can gel with the other players.
Yeah, Vucevic is one of those centers he's a pretty consistent three-point shooter as well. So he stretches the floor. There's always a couple teams looking for guys like that as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that's where he's staying this year. Let's move on, Serge. A couple more to go. We got a good one here. We got the Philadelphia 76ers. They had a pretty weird year last year. They finished sixth in the East at 43-30. Their new GM, Daryl Morey, new coach, Doc Rivers. Their guards are Dakota Mathias on a two-way contract. Seth Curry, Tyrese Maxey is their rookie. Justin Anderson, Isaiah Joe's also a rookie. Ben Simmons, Matthias Thybulle, Forkman, Korkmaz, Danny Green, Shake Milton, Derek Walton. Their forwards are Tobias Harris, Terrence Ferguson, Mike Scott. Two-way, Paul Reed, Ryan Brokoff, the Aussie, and then their centers are Dwight Howard, Tony Bradley, Joel Embiid, and Vincent Poirier. They've definitely got better this year, Serge. They needed to get rid of Al Horford.
And they accomplished that. And the thing with them is that, they got a great GM now, and they have an amazing coach. So I think they upgraded a lot in the office to start with. So it's a bit of a fresh year for them. Even they have similar players before, but I think you could expect a lot more than 6 this year for Philadelphia.
Yeah, for those who didn't follow too much of the 76ers last year, apart from Al Horford being on a $30 million contract, which just completely screwed up their ability to put shooters and some extra pieces, he wasn't a good fit in that front court. Him and Joel Embiid did not work at all. It really left Tobias Harris in a really weird position because he's too big to be playing the three. He gets beaten off the dribble by a lot of these really athletic threes, and he'll have a bit more room this year. I think his job will be to fire away from three because that's not really what Ben Simmons does. But defensively, obviously adding Seth Curry and Danny Green, they should be in the starting lineup. I'm thinking Simmons, Curry, Green, Harris, and Embiid, that should be their starting lineup this year.
I like that team, and I'm going to second that. I think Curry's ready.
I think he's going to have he'll get better again this year. At Dallas with Luka Doncic, he was getting some beautiful passes straight into his hands for open three. He can create his own shot as well, but the space that he's going to get with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons running around, he should have another great year shooting just under 50% from three. And hopefully Danny Green, I felt kind of bad for him. He missed a couple of big shots in the playoffs last year, started getting death threats. So I think he's happy to be out of LA and not revive his career, but finish his next couple years, the end of his season off well. Because Philadelphia, they got a chance this year, man. They got a chance if everything goes right.
100%. Well, Lakers fans are a bit cutthroat, so Danny Green, he's going to get another shot here. But he's a proven player. He did well with the Spurs in the finals. He was a pivotal part of them winning the championship. I like to see Philadelphia have another shot with the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid combo.
Me too.
I feel, injuries have kind of cut them short. People have talked a lot about their chemistry and this and that. But the fact of the matter is that things haven't coincided for them. They had that one shot where, Kawhi hit that game 6 or game 7 buzzer beater against.
It was against Philly.
Yeah, that was horrible. And that was their best shot. That had been their best team.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd like to see them this year with those two players more matured and, kind of a better understanding of how to play together and to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're probably hoping for a little bit of improvement offensively. Matthias Tybalt, their rookie last year, got a lot of run. He is a great defender. He's got active hands. He's always in front of his defender, but his shot looked pretty terrible last year. So a little bit of improvement from him. If he can get that shot up in the early 30s, early mid-30s, just keep improving with that three-point shot. Maybe get a few pointers from Seth Curry and Danny Green might help as well. I didn't want to mention this too much, but it is the question still burning is Ben Simmons. There's obviously some trades out there in the Twitter sphere and everything that people are talking about for James Harden. I'm with you. Give it a go. I want to see, now that they've got shooters around them again, like they did 2 seasons ago, the Sixers, how Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid play, because they were really good a couple of years ago on the floor together.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Harden trade is still up there, but I'm one of those people that doesn't want to see that go through. I think Ben Simmons is a generational talent, and Harden, it's kind of all around the place right now. He's 32 years old. We don't know where his head's at, how dedicated he is. We know that every piece that's been put around him has been let go afterwards, and there's been issues. So we don't know if he's a team player that Philly needs.
Yeah, Harden's kind of killed his reputation recently with all the stuff coming out, obviously. And if I was Joel Embiid and all these talks are going around that maybe Ben Simmons is going to get traded for James Harden, I'd be having a chat down more and say, just give us some time to figure this out. We're both, early 20s still. I think Embiid's 25 and Simmons is 24 or something crazy.
Yeah.
Something. So give us some time. They're both hungry. Give them most of this season. I think the trade deadline ends in March. So let's say the Sixers aren't playing their 7th or 6th in the East and they need a change, go for it. But I have a feeling they're going to be the top 3 this year. I think they're going to have a really good year, and it really depends on Joel Embiid's health. And stop eating junk food, you fat shit. It's hard to say that. Like, you see these videos of him eating burgers and stuff on the sideline. I remember when Dirk retired, and Dirk had this thing. He goes, I haven't eaten ice cream during a season in 20 years. And you have to have a lot of mental fortitude to put yourself through that. But if you want to get the best out of your career, not money-wise, but just have a legend that lives on forever, you got to look after your body, and you got to.
Yeah, I mean, so many guys I've heard it from. Even Derrick Rose. He, after his first few injuries, he's like, I learned how to eat, because that's when you get injured, when you're not eating the proper food.
Yep.
And you don't have all those nutrients.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Sergio, let's finish up today's podcast talking about the Phoenix Suns. They finished 10th in the West last year, 34-39. That record is helped by an 8-0 record in the bubble, which saw them still miss out on the play-in tournament. This year, their coach and GM are the same. They've got James Jones as GM and Monty Williams. Their guards are Cam Payne, Etuan Moore, Javon Carter, Tyshawn Alexander's on a 2-way contract. He's more of a wing, but Mikal Bridges as well, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Langston Galloway. Their forwards are Abdel Nader, Dario Saric, Jonathan Motley, Jalen Smith, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson. And their centers are Damian Jones and DeAndre Ayton. They're definitely not missing out on the playoffs or the play-in tournament. I can't see them missing this year, Serge. Not with Chris Paul there.
There's no way, because basically they were the best team in the bubble that didn't make it.
Yep.
And they could have been arguably as good as Portland or around there, but now they have Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is a game changer, as you know.
I don't think Chris Paul is going to have the statistical year that he had last year. He was an all-star. I think he was second team All-NBA or third team. He was brilliant last year. But he's not LeBron. LeBron seems to defy time and age. Chris Paul has had a few injuries over the year, but I don't think they're going to be asking him to be the player he was last year. I think his job will to be setting up Booker, especially Ayton, getting Ayton involved in a lot of pick and rolls and expanding his game. And I think he might be the third, maybe the fourth scorer with a couple of these wings off the bench as well. And that, for me, they're still going to be in that 6-7 position.
For sure, and that could be something better for him too. If he molds into a player that doesn't need to score as much, but he can be the real point guard facilitator and making everyone better, that could be a position that he could have 2 or 3 more years in him.
Making everyone better. That's what Chris Paul, for me, has always done really, really well. He makes everyone on that team better. He gets people paid as well. You got DeAndre Jordan paid. He works hard. He trains hard. He's probably one of the more knowledgeable guys in the league. A lot of players probably hate him for a lot of things that he does and the way he talks to referees, but he's a Hall of Famer.
He's the vice president of the. Is he the president? Or
He's the president. He's the president.
He's the president of the Players Association.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of power all over the place.
Yeah, a couple of guys here as well. Like with a lot of these young teams trying to get back into the playoffs, and I think Phoenix might be one of the teams with the longest streak of not making the playoffs. They need a bit more from if Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson can grow a little bit more and those wings, because they've got some good wing depth this year with Jay Crowder was a really good signing. And Dario Saric is coming back as well. So if those guys can grow, get a little bit better, probably defensively for Cam Johnson and offensively for Mikal Bridges, his team gets better.
It could be a high scoring team. I mean, Booker could average 30 points. That guy is unstoppable on offense.
He's had a 70-point game we've talked about before. He had a couple of game winners in the bubble last year. This year, I think, is the year that I think a lot of people are hoping Devin Booker makes another jump. Like, I think this year he could be definitely an all-star, but for him, he wants to be, if he can make all-NBA, that's a goal. And it's definitely an easy goal because we know that he can hit shots. And he's been doing it on his own for last couple of years without a really good point guard. Ricky Rubio is nowhere near on the same level, obviously, as Chris Paul.
Yeah, good job by the Suns getting him Chris Paul because he could have been one of those players waiting to push their way out soon too.
Yeah. Well, beautiful, Serge. That's the next 6. We have one more podcast to go before we start our season predictions. Whenever this comes out, guys, we are talking right now. It's the 23rd here, 22nd here, 21st for Sergio in America. Wherever you guys are listening, on our next pod, we're going to have a chat about the Portland Trailblazers, the Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, Toronto Raptors, Utah Jazz, and we'll finish with the Washington Wizards. But tomorrow we have the start of the season. We have the Warriors playing the Nets and the LA Derby. I am so pumped, Serge. I'm not going to sleep tonight. Can you feel the buzz in LA?
Yes. Even though there's not that many people out in the street, but yes, there's a lot of hunger with both teams right now. What's your pick?
That first game, I've got the Nets and I got the Lakers. Okay. Yourself? Clippers.
These guys are going to win tomorrow. Ooh. And shout out to my friend Jonathan Bresler for giving me the OG Q Richardson jersey.
I love that.
I'm going with the Clippers tomorrow for sure. And I'll take the Nets too.
All right, we got a little, maybe that we can start our first little bet here then if we got one different and maybe we have a little cheeky shot of tequila, whoever loses.
Sounds good to me. Any bet against LeBron, I'll take.
Beautiful, because it's most likely we're going to be doing a pod in the morning. So if I lose, it'll be a nice brekkie shot of tequila for me.
There we go.
But Sergio, always good talking to you. Always good talking ball. I will catch up with you tomorrow when we talk some more. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and listening to us. Remember, like the video, subscribe. We've got our Facebook group as well, Talking Ball with Scotty and Serge. We're still getting Instagram and Twitter up. We'll get that up shortly. But have a great day wherever you guys are. Stay safe. Mask up. Sergio, keep it real, brother.
Thanks, guys. Peace.